If someone had told me yesterday that I would end up moonlighting as a CEO's personal attorney while also moonlighting as his emotional hostage, I'd have laughed and probably cried. Life, it turns out, enjoys cruel jokes. I'm Adrian Hale, 25, newly reborn into a life I never thought I'd earn in a second chance. Last life, I died thinking I'd never matter. This life, I'm determined not to waste a single heartbeat. And apparently, fate decided to challenge me by putting Jackson Cole in my path. Jackson, 28, CEO of Cole Industries, man of the hour in every corporate magazine, and apparently my permanent obsession. I met him the first day of my new job. He strode into the office, tall, impeccably dressed, but with an air that made the world hush like even the fluorescent lights respected him. His eyes, cold at first glance, softened when they lingered on me, as if he already knew more than he should. "You're the new legal counsel?" he asked, voice smooth but carrying an undercurrent that made my stomach seize. I nodded, trying to ignore how loudly my heartbeat was announcing itself. "Yes, Mr. Cole. Adrian Hale." He didn't smile, not fully, but the slight curve of his lips betrayed something he wasn't ready to admit. That was the first crack in the icy wall I didn't know I'd be climbing. Days turned into weeks, and work was brutal. He demanded perfection, dissected every clause like it was his personal vendetta against mediocrity. And yet, there were moments fleeting, dangerous, when he looked at me differently. A pause in the middle of a heated boardroom meeting, a hand brushing against mine while handing over documents, eyes meeting mine a second too long. I hated him. I loved him. I despised myself for feeling either. One rainy Thursday, after a 12-hour workday that should have been enough to kill any semblance of romance before it even started, he called me into his office. The city lights glimmered against the wet glass, reflections dancing like they were mocking me. "Adrian, sit," he said. His voice was lower, softer, and my chest betrayed me with a shudder. I obeyed, mind screaming warnings I couldn't listen to. "You're different," he murmured, eyes narrowing, not in suspicion, but in curiosity. "There's something about you I can't place. I've had assistants before, lawyers before. Never anyone who makes me feel this." I laughed bitterly. "You mean you've never had someone annoy you this much?" Jackson smirked, but his gaze softened, lingering. And then, without warning, he leaned back, letting his hand brush against mine on the armrest. That small touch sent shockwaves, reminding me just how alive I was, how dangerous living for this moment could be. Our days began to blur between professional boundaries and unspoken desires. Office hours were strict, relentless, demanding. But evenings were different. He would call, his voice warmer than I had any right to hear, and we would meet for coffee, sometimes dinners, sometimes just silent walks through neon-lit streets. The city became our witness, neon signs reflecting our closeness, rain-soaked sidewalks echoing our laughter. And then, the inevitable happened, our first kiss. It wasn't in a ballroom or under a fireworks display. It was in a cramped elevator stuck between the 23rd and 24th floors. Panic, fear, excitement, all collided. And when his lips found mine, it wasn't gentle, it was consuming. I tasted longing and regret, desire and restraint, all in a single, fiery second. Afterward, we stared at each other, breaths heavy. "We can't," I whispered. "Not here. Not like this." He chuckled softly, fingers brushing my cheek. "But we already are." Life wasn't just stolen moments of closeness. There were darker threads too. Rivals, jealous colleagues, and boardroom politics threatened to tear us apart. And worse, the internal struggles neither of us could voice. I was an Omega, newly aware of the instincts that surged through me whenever he was near. Jackson, dominant, powerful, exuded a presence that both thrilled and terrified me. I didn't know how to navigate the pull between my biological urges and my heart. And he was fighting his own battles, trying to reconcile his affection for me with the necessity of his control, of his public image. One evening, after a confrontation that nearly ended in disaster, another assistant had tried to sabotage my work, I found myself alone in his office, the hum of the city below like a heartbeat syncing with mine. "I can't lose you," he said suddenly, voice rough, almost breaking. "Even if the world doesn't accept this, even if I have to pretend, I can't." I blinked, trying to steady my breathing. "You don't have to pretend with me," I whispered. I want this. All of it. Even the parts that scare me." He closed the distance between us, hands cradling my face, thumbs brushing over my cheekbones. "Then we face it together," he said. And when he kissed me again, it was patient, unrelenting, a promise wrapped in warmth and strength. Those moments became our secret language. A touch in the office, a whispered message on my phone, a hand held under the table during meetings. The world saw us as professional colleagues, but our private universe was electric, alive with intimacy that neither time nor society could restrain. And yet, even amidst this intimacy, tension brewed. My past life memories fragmented. Painful reminded me that happiness is never simple. Jackson's past too, filled with betrayals and sacrifices, kept him guarded. Every smile, every caress, was both a balm and a risk. The turning point came during a company retreat in the mountains. Surrounded by pine trees and fog, we were forced out of the structured city life, and in the quiet of the night, alone by a lake, our barriers broke completely. I shivered as he held me close, the scent of his cologne mixing with the crisp mountain air. "I never thought I could feel this. Free," he confessed, pressing his forehead against mine. "With anyone. But with you." I smiled, tears threatening to fall. "With me too, Jackson. I've lived 2 lives, and I think this one finally feels right." We stayed like that, wrapped in each other, until the stars faded and dawn painted the sky. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But in that moment, the world outside ceased to matter. It was just us two souls tethered by fate, by choice, and by an unspoken understanding that love, even in a world that tries to define it, is ours to claim. The morning after the mountain retreat, the world seemed sharper, brighter, and somehow more dangerous. Jackson and I returned to the city, but the intimacy we had shared clung to us like an invisible tether. The office didn't feel the same anymore. Every glance, every handoff of a document carried the weight of what we had become. It started subtly. In meetings, his gaze would find mine, lingering a fraction too long, and I felt my pulse spike. Even the coldest boardroom seemed warmer when he was near, as if the city itself conspired to let us exist in these moments of quiet tension. One Thursday, I was reviewing a contract in the late hours, the office silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Jackson appeared without knocking, leaning against the doorframe. The light from his phone illuminated his sharp jawline and dark eyes. "Still working?" he asked, voice low, teasing but edged with concern. I forced a smile. "Deadlines don't wait, Jackson." He stepped closer, the scent of him filling the space between us. "And neither do feelings, Adrian." That simple statement made me shiver. The next thing I knew, his hand was resting lightly on my shoulder, fingers brushing in a way that ignited every nerve ending. I looked up at him, and there was no pretense in his expression, just raw desire and a vulnerability he rarely allowed the world to see. The line between work and personal life blurred faster than I could anticipate. We developed a rhythm, almost instinctively, that allowed us stolen moments. Coffee breaks turned into secret lunches, brief touches under the table, late-night conversations that extended to stolen kisses in the stairwell. Each interaction was both a thrill and a risk. Then came the confrontation that tested everything. A rival executive, jealous of Jackson's attention toward me, tried to manipulate a critical contract. One clause could have cost the company millions. When I discovered it, I confronted him, and the confrontation escalated quickly, ending in threats and veiled intimidation. I returned to the office that evening shaken. Jackson met me at the elevator, his expression unreadable. When the doors closed, he took my face in his hands. "You can't let anyone threaten you like that," he said, voice firm but gentle. "I won't allow it." I swallowed, emotions swirling. I didn't want to drag you into it. You already did, by being you, he whispered, his lips brushing mine. This kiss was different, not just desire, but a promise, a reassurance that we were allies in every sense. In the following weeks, we grew bolder. Public appearances were still professional, but behind closed doors, we allowed ourselves moments that made my omega instincts hum with longing. The subtle shifts, his hand lingering on my back, my fingers brushing his wrist, became our secret language. And even when the world threatened to pull us apart, those moments reminded us why we couldn't let go. The turning point came during an unexpected board inspection. A sudden emergency forced Jackson and me to spend an entire weekend together in the company penthouse. Locked in the high-rise suite, removed from the city's gaze, the barriers we had erected crumbled completely. I woke on Sunday morning to find him watching me over a cup of coffee, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. "You're staring," I said, though my voice trembled. He smirked. "Admiring. Dangerous thing to do," I teased, even as my heart raced. "Not as dangerous as pretending we're not." His words trailed off, but the meaning was clear. That weekend, we explored the full spectrum of what we had been holding back: touch, intimacy, and the quiet acknowledgement that our bond was deeper than any professional arrangement. Every caress, every whispered word, every shared laughter reinforced our connection. Jackson wasn't just the man I adored. He was my anchor, my protector, my partner in a life that now held infinite possibility. Returning to daily life was harder than expected. The office, with its fluorescent lights and constant scrutiny, felt suffocating. But we found ways to sustain our closeness. Handwritten notes left on desks, subtle brushes of hands in crowded hallways, a lingering gaze in the elevator. Our love was quiet yet unyielding, each act of intimacy a rebellion against the constraints imposed by society and duty. Then came the crisis that threatened everything. A powerful investor attempted to force a hostile takeover, jeopardizing Jackson's empire. I found myself working through nights, contracts and negotiations merging into a blur of strategy and desperation. Jackson, though stressed, remained close, offering support and grounding me when panic threatened to consume me. One night, after an exhausting negotiation session, I found myself on the rooftop, gazing at the city lights. Jackson appeared silently beside me, the wind tugging at his hair. "You look like hell," he said, half teasing, half worried. "I feel worse," I admitted. He took my hand, holding it firmly. "Then let me carry some of that weight. Not just in business, Adrian. In life." The sincerity in his eyes left me breathless. I leaned into him, letting the world fall away. "I don't think I'd survive without you," I confessed. "You won't have to," he replied, pressing his forehead to mine. The warmth of his breath, the strength of his embrace, it all anchored me. "We'll survive everything. Together." From that moment, our relationship became unshakable. Even in the face of corporate warfare, public scrutiny, and personal insecurities, we had each other. And that knowledge gave me a freedom I hadn't known existed in my previous life: a freedom to love, to surrender, to be vulnerable without fear. The months that followed were a delicate balance of power, love, and mutual respect. Jackson trusted me not just as his lawyer but as his partner. I trusted him not just as my CEO but as the man who owned my heart. Our intimacy deepened, marked by understanding and tenderness, the playful teasing that sometimes gave way to heated passion. Then, one evening, during a rare quiet dinner at his penthouse, he reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. "I've been thinking," he said, voice low, "about the future, about us." My pulse quickened. "And," he smiled, a rare, genuine smile that made my heart stutter. "I don't want a life without you in it. I don't care about the world's rules or expectations. I want this permanently." Tears welled in my eyes, not of sorrow but of relief and overwhelming love. "Then let's make it ours," I whispered. We sealed that promise not with words alone, but with a kiss that spoke of every stolen moment, every touch, every confession we had shared. It was not just desire. It was commitment, a merging of lives and hearts in a way that defied convention yet felt entirely natural. In the end, we learned that love is not about avoiding pain or fear. It is about choosing, every day, to face the world together, to protect each other, to nurture the fragile flame that burns between two souls. Jackson and I had been given a second chance life, love, and the extraordinary gift of belonging to each other. As the sun set over the skyline, we stood on the rooftop, hands entwined, hearts beating in unison. The city below was vast and indifferent, but up here it belonged to us. "I never imagined this life," I said softly, leaning into him. "Neither did I," he replied, arms tightening around me. "But I can't imagine any other life now." And in that moment, I understood the truth I had always known deep down. Some bonds are unbreakable. Some loves are meant to transcend fear, and some hearts are meant to be owned, cherished, and protected forever. Jackson kissed the top of my head, and I rested my forehead against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. For the first time in both my lives, I was home. No corporate rivalry, no hostile takeover, no societal expectation could touch what we had. We had built a sanctuary within each other, a space where love was not a liability but the ultimate triumph. And as the night wrapped us in its quiet embrace, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together stronger, braver, and irrevocably in love. The city lights twinkled like distant stars, mirroring the warmth in our hearts. And there, amidst the chaos of life, the uncertainty of the world, and the memories of a past life that had taught me pain, I found peace. Jackson whispered my name, soft and full of promise. "Adrian." I smiled, letting the words escape me, carrying the weight of every fear, every longing, every hope. "Jackson." And in that shared moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only us two souls, one love, infinite possibilities. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.